And we are recording. Hi everyone, this is David P. France and I'm coming to you from Basel, Switzerland. And before we get started, I want to make sure that you guys like the video, subscribe to the YouTube and BitChute channels, David P. France TV, and also share with your family and friends. This channel is primarily for creatives and creators, so we're showcasing them. So it's artists of all kinds, dancers, actors, singers, musicians, writers, I think I said that already, inventors, thought leaders, small business owners, and entrepreneurs. So today I'm speaking with Chris Young. This is for the second time. And Chris is a martial artist, actor, model, and studio owner. And he's coming to us from Pittsburgh, right? You're there, right?
Pittsburgh.
How are you, Chris? How things?
I'm doing okay, all things considered, right?
All things considered. Yeah?
Yeah. Well, you know, it's so hard to hit people with social distancing.
Yeah, it's a difficult thing, right? I mean, it's an all new situation for many people.
It is, but interestingly, actually, I was training one of my students on staff work, and especially like he was working on his form and he wasn't like thinking about like, why do you do this and stuff. So I grabbed a nice long spear, no sharp tip, and I like attack him. So he's like, well, you need block here, you need block here. He was a little annoyed with me, but you know, I got the point across. Yeah. So if you have really long weapons, you can sort of do it. My spear is 8 feet long. His staff is 6, so there's plenty of room.
So wait a minute. So let me ask you a quick question. So if I wanted, how do people come to you? Are they interested in martial arts and then they get the lesson on the spears and the all kinds of
No.
things?
He's been with me a long time. He's one of my disciples.
But how do you get to the point where you're moving with the weapons? You have to start out somewhere, right? Do people, in other words, people come to you and say, I want to work with the weapons? Or you make them do all the other stuff?
Yeah, you should get some open hand training first.
Open like this?
Well, like punching, blocking, moving, controlling, blocking, you know, whatever this, you know, whatever it is that you're doing. It's like, so like you do this way, it's like block, or you can strike, or you can block, you can pull this way. So if you have a force come this way, you guide it this way and go this. Well, this is a lot like a sword going against a spear. So if a spear comes, you don't want to hit directly in the blade because, well, sometimes you do if you want to try and control the spear, but usually the spear guy can change it and then break your sword and then you're shit out of luck. Pardon me. But you know, usually like you'll block a little to the side, then turn and go up and cut the guy with the sword, right? Or hit his hand. Usually you hit the far hand and then you go up and hit his face or whatever. But this is like similar movement to use your hand.
Okay.
So you need to learn like the basic moves first, like to do like this so you can have coordination. Then when you use a weapon, even though usually we don't go running around the street with a sword or a spear, except for, of course, me. Not really.
Okay.
I'm not going to actually. Anyway, using these longer weapons helps you extend your chi and understand these types of movements better, so that you're not thinking local, you're thinking more longer with your arms too. So a lot of times, even though some people will say like weapons training is not useful in these days, actually it makes your open hand better, but you have to start open hand. And then, you know, this student has been with me for many years, so he's doing like lots of weapons.
Okay. I was just curious.
Sorry, I sort of went off, and
because you're talking about weapons, and I wish, I mean, for these purposes, we can only, you know, show what we're showing right now, but it would be great if at some point we could see the actual, movement or demonstration. Anyway, tell us what's in the back of you. Last time we had, you had the poster of yourself in your studio. This right here is what in the background?
Oh, this is my Kung Fu ancestor wall. So mainly it's, well, it's all dead people, because if you're alive, you're not an ancestor.
Right,
so
okay.
Some people will ask, well, Sifu, should I put you, teacher, should I put you on there? Say, I'm not dead yet. But anyway, so like this guy, it's virtual. So right above my head, he's my great grandmaster, Wang Pei Shang. And then you have Tai Chi guys, opposite. Tai Chi guys going this way, and then underneath them Xing-Yi, and then Bagua guys on the other side, and then below that some Tongde guys.
So these are your people. These are your family in terms of the practice that you do. Is that correct?
Yeah, my lineage.
Your lineage in terms of your practice, not your actual genealogy.
No. I don't actually. My family immigrated from China, and we lost contact with those guys. And then my mom's family, actually, not from China, but I don't know them either. So I don't know my lineage going back, my genetic lineage going back very far.
Your parents, your father's from China, or your father's side is from China, and your mother's side, where are they from?
All over, but she grew up in New Mexico. My grandfather was a cowboy, but he died before I grew up. So before I was born, and so I grew up in a pretty Chinese household, listening to Tejano music in the morning with Kachina dolls, because we're native also. And so we had like all these kids. She grew up like it was either on or right next to the Navajo reservation. I'm not sure which. So we have she had all this turquoise. So she had all this turquoise, and my Chinese family had all this jade. We had rocks everywhere,
And why to collect them? Is it supposed to have some energy, or that's something different?
Well,
just looks nice.
A lot of Indian jewelry is made with turquoise and silver. So she had a ton of it. Yeah.
So. And wait, I didn't ask you. Were you an only child, or you have siblings, or?
Yeah.
Okay. But do they know some? Do they also practice, or they're doing something totally different?
I don't know. I don't talk to them.
You don't talk to them. Okay. Well, we will move on. Tell us what you've been up to since we last talked. Now, one of the reasons why I asked you to do the interview again is that as you know, that we upload the interviews onto BitChute and also to YouTube. And the reasons for that are that sometimes YouTube, you can't say certain things, and there's a little censorship. And although all of our interviews have been very, very friendly, so we wouldn't necessarily have anything, anything bad going for us. They're doing well. The videos are doing well, right? So the upside is that we can see the counts on BitChute, and the downside is no one's really commented yet, but I don't know if that's necessarily good or bad, right? But it's I'm taking it as a good thing. So I wanted to, speak with you again. What are you up to? What are you up to today? Or what have you been up to since I last spoke to you?
Well, several things. I mean, I've been reworking how the school works, obviously, because of COVID, and gradually, I've been doing a lot of Zoom classes, but I started adding live ones with masks, but no contact, And, I discontinued the lion dance for now because, it's just really hard to do and know that you're being safe about it, right? But I've kind of switched my energy there into actually building lions. So you know what a Chinese lion looks like? So I don't know how to throw up a picture, but I could.
It usually has there's a lot of, with the head, and then it moves, right? Is that
little furry balls all over. We call them hero balls. And they're based on Chinese opera masks, and they're built with a bamboo frame. is fairly complex. And then you have a whole papering process you have to do. And then all the paint with the symbols with like fire and swords and grass and water and stuff like that. And so I'm doing more building with that. And you know, you use flame and you know, steam to tame the bamboo and shape it and do all these things. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of work. I mean, if you think Tai Chi requires patience, you should try building a lion. But I'm doing a lot of that, building spare parts, working on a full head. I'm going to work on a few more. And potentially I might start selling things like that or teaching it. I did, you know, we had a summer camp scheduled and 2 kids really, really wanted to come. So I taught them how to make the bamboo framework for a mouth, which I had to do some of the work because it requires cutting, like splitting a length of bamboo with a knife and using a flame to bend it a little bit. But then I taught them how to make string out of paper and then bind the joints and then put them across and do all this sort of stuff. And they did really well. There's 2 girls. And the 9-year-old was amazing.
Well, let me ask you, how did you learn how to do all this stuff? I mean, like, I mean, you've learned how to do a lot, right? I mean, like, if you're doing mask and I mean, this is complex. So did one of the people on the wall instruct you?
Those guys teach me to that's where my fighting comes from.
Okay.
This is my lion dance teacher. I think I mentioned him last time. He's in San Francisco, and actually he makes these things. I'm still learning a little bit how to do it well, but the first thing I did was, like, those lions get beat up because we're running around with them. We're jumping, jump spins with them, you know, if you're really good. Going on top of benches like that. When you practice, sometimes maybe you fall off. So, as a matter of fact, one time we did one with a spear. I don't know if I mentioned this last time, but there's one called Poisonous Snake Impedes Road. And the snake's represented by a spear. And you have this guy doing spear work and the lion's there and trying to bite the snake and stuff like that. And it got caught in his mouth. And I ripped apart the mouth. It was like, you know, and there was like wire work to make teeth in it. So it's a pretty fancy mouth. So I had to totally remake that. So you sort of, if you don't have a lot of money like us, you can't just run out and buy new lions. Some groups are really famous. I have friends in one group that's very famous in Los Angeles, and they're like buying a bunch of lions, but these little puppies cost, you know, anywhere between $800 and $2,500. Depending on how good of a lion you want. So that's how I started learning to repair them, and he's helped me, and now I'm just building them.
Yeah, that's interesting. And you mentioned, I think, like we've been talking back and forth via email or text. You've been doing some movie work, or what's going on there?
Yeah, actually, really, I got great news yesterday. Is a film I shot last year called Faction. I got a nice supporting role as Wong in it. Bad guy, so much fun. And we got Best of Show in the science fiction category in the Philadelphia Independent Film Festival this year. So that was pretty cool. I'm pretty psyched about that. And then I'm working on a new film set back in the 30s. And, you know, I got a nice juicy role in that too. So playing a good guy this time.
And generally, how do you get these roles? Or they come through an agent, or do they word of mouth? Because they want you specifically for certain things, right?
These are more word of mouth right now. And then, like, I was just talking to somebody who saw my post about, he's been following my Instagram and saw this post about the award and decided to send me a message. It might have also been because I fell asleep on top of my phone and accidentally sent a few people somehow forwarded like something about pizza slices to like 3 or 4 people. So that started. But yeah, he's interested in the possibility of working with me, you know, and so yeah, you don't get a lot of big chances here in Pittsburgh, and I'm still building my reel a lot. I'm going to be helping a guy with his with the fight scene next week, just for his reel. But if you don't have that, especially here in Pittsburgh, it's hard to get good ones unless you're going for independence. And you know, independence, in all honesty, you know, there's a lot of fun, interesting things going on in the independent world, and so that's what I'm doing at the moment. Hopefully I'll, you know, work my way up. But
so let me ask you another question. You talk about the modeling, right? The modeling. Can you, I mean, I think that you've done some work recently, but how do you usually, how does that work come to you? Is that coming through Instagram or all the social media now, or is there somebody out there that's?
It depends. You know, for my agents, I get modeling work, and sometimes through connections, you know, when I'm trying to build my portfolio in particular, if there's a good photographer or he likes, you know, my look, then we get together and collaborate. So it's a variety of things, you know. Whirlpool of Mana, you have to get those types of jobs, you have to get through an agent. You're not going to get it Instagram.
But generally it's because they've seen your work somewhere out in the internet world. I mean, isn't that how things are working now? I mean, it's not like people are calling up and say, hey, I need this, this, and this, and this. I mean, from what I can see, that social media is playing a big role, right?
They do for building your portfolio. Getting a lot of paying jobs, not as much.
Not as much, okay.
You see, if the best stuff still comes through your agencies usually. You can get some stuff like there's Actors Access for actors, and you know, there's a few places like that. But agencies, I think, are still really good because, at least for like a guy, for me, I'm horrible at negotiating and prices and knowing what you know, all this kind of stuff, and you know, all that business stuff. It is really worth it to have an agency. You know, you also want an agency that's kind of on board with where you're going, and so you have to produce work for your agency. So if you want to do like these types of jobs, some say fight or whatever, my agency doesn't do that much of it, but I can get that on my own because I'm well known as a fighter. But you want to say play a lead in this type of role, or you want to do this, portray these, you know, then it's really helpful to prepare monologues and you know, real material, get some independence that you can send them, and then they have the contacts for like the bigger projects if you want to do that, and then they can get back to you, and that increases your chances. So a lot of times, you know, they might have an idea of you, and then you decide you want to do something else. They can be resistant until you prove, but they still are really good at finding those jobs, finding the really good ones, making sure that everybody's reliable, that sort of stuff. That's my experience. If you have a good agent, I have a good one here in Pittsburgh.
You have what in Pittsburgh? What were you saying?
An agent.
You have an agent in Pittsburgh? Yeah. So let's say if you were, now that Hollywood is shut down, like what would be, I mean, what are your thoughts on that? And like, what would be the best scenario for someone that's in a similar situation? Because it seems like you're keeping busy. You've got things going on. Maybe other people in LA, maybe, or other actors and models, you know, may not be having the same kind of situation.
Well, for me, I'm very fortunate also to have a really good acting teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like in the top class, the advanced class, along
Mm-hmm.
with some other really good actors. And so, and I'm not really going for the big Hollywood movies yet, right?
Mm-hmm.
I like New York. I like working in New York. And this film that I'm doing now is actually being produced by a little studio out of New York. But that guy used to be here, and so he's partners with the guy here. And then you develop that, and hopefully, if you can get along with them well, then you know when things start to shape up again, I'll be going back and seeing Maestri on a regular basis again, and shooting over there. And like this guy who contacted me on Instagram, he said, well, hey, I'm in New Jersey. I said, well, hey, I'm up there all the time, or when things are normal. And, you know, I have another friend, he's like, you know, developing an agency, and he's got some projects, and, you know, so I would say, foster your relationships, you know, keep them good, you know, and talk about ideas. And if you're like even with other actors, you can, you know, cold read, stuff like that. I'm working on some scripts. So I'm working with another friend of mine who's an act. Oh my God, he's a really good actor. He graduated from CMU and he's going to conservatory.
What's CMU? What's CMU?
Oh, Carnegie Mellon University.
Oh, okay.
They're like the number 7
yeah, it's
drama
up there.
school in the world. Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
And I mean, he is freaking amazing. I don't think he even realizes how good he is. And we're working on a script together that we want to produce. And I think if you have a dream and you have patience, you know, a lot of these can come true, and they don't all have to. You have a few of them going, and you know, I don't know, that's I think you just have to keep your toe in it and try and do it. And like I was a little bit on a drought, and just like, you know, I got to get back onto monologues. And the next thing I know, I was wandering around the school speaking a brogue, because you know, one of my favorite monologues is from The Ferryman, and I worked on the Irish, and the next thing I know, I'm just doing that. And I'm sorry, that's sort of discombobulated advice, but you know, I'm not super methodical. I just, when I see possibilities that look good, then I try and look into them and see what happens. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, currently I am working with a school, flamenco school. I think I told you this the last time. We have our first show coming up in 2 weeks. And what's interesting, and as I saw your wall, right, I thought to myself, I said, David, you actually have a wall of people, you know, not here, of course, but in my mind, I started thinking about all of the people that helped me. It's a very interesting group of people, very interesting group of people. And the current couple that owns the school are from Spain originally. I think she's a bit older than him. She came to Switzerland first, and then he followed, I think, maybe separately. But she's been doing shows for like 20 years, I think. So she has a poster for almost every show that she's done on the back, similar to what you have. And that was the way that I realized, oh, okay, she's serious, right? You know, so in the middle of the COVID, I guess in the summer, she said, okay, we're gonna have a show. I think she was recovering from cancer, and she shaved all her hair off and stuff, and now it's growing back. She's like, okay, show's happening September 5th. People on vacation, and well, that's okay, we'll just go with what we have, which is amazing, because before the attitude was different. So 2 weeks, we're gonna go on, and whatever happens, happens. And
well,
you know.
I think that's what you have to do, and you just have to decide, you know, there is some risk, but we're knowing a little bit more as we go along. The United States has not been well disciplined, but it's getting a little bit better finally. And you know, find those opportunities and keep it in you. And like COVID has actually opened up new opportunities. So since the academia had to close, we've been doing the capoeira via Zoom with a lot of my maestri senior students, like from Kenya and Chicago and Brazil. Oh, amazing. That guy's pretty amazing. But and then they're starting to specialize into interesting classes and getting different opportunities. He is going over the music in detail. I will never be able to completely get it. I mean, he's like crazy detailed on the music, but also I am learning Samba dancing because it's connected with capoeira. So I'm learning Bahia style, but then she's saying, well, you know, I think I'll later maybe show you a little bit of Rio, which is like really flashy. That's going to help in my acting career potentially, right? You know.
So we have to see you do a little bit of this. We got to see you do a little bit of this Samba. I would like to see this. I would like to see how this works. You don't have to do it this time. We'll wait till next time after you've got more classes.
I'll get a little bit more practice. I'll tell Savannah that I need that. I've been called out.
you can do it by yourself without a partner?
Well, you know, you practice it that way. Actually, in Samba, a lot of times there's like a lot of cutting in, so it can be like a game.
Right.
And tossing people, you know, like you go to the real traditional type of thing. So you have like kind of, it's like capoeira actually. You know, you have different versions. Like you have the type to show, you have a game that's friendly, you have like a more, you know, aggressive game. You have all these levels.
Right.
And Samba, from what I can get, is like a friendly version of similar ways. You know, it's a lot of, it looks like almost more of a game than a dance. It's like in between. It's fun.
So what prompted you to say, okay, I'm going to learn Samba? You say, oh, I'm going to learn Samba. I mean, you know what I mean? I'm trying to get into your mind about, oh yeah, let me do that, and then you do it, right?
Well, there's a couple of reasons. One is, at Maestri's birthday a while back,
Maestri is your
my capoeira master.
Yeah, okay.
They did like Samba dancing at the end, and this girl dragged me in. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. So this is like one thing. The other thing, I feel like just having some kind of dancing would be useful in my acting career, something like this, because, you know, I could potentially play somebody from Brazil. There's a lot of Asians there.
Sure.
And I'm mixed, so, you know, and it's cool. And I actually want to learn salsa, but Samba is connected with capoeira because of candomblé, right? So they a lot of time in the old way, they would do some of this dancing to purify the area before the roda.
Sure.
And so Maestri wants us to know, you know, a little bit more of the traditions and the background of traditional capoeira. And you can see already with Kung Fu, I'm traditional. I know a lot of stories that a lot of people don't know. I know a lot of history. I know these things, and I should give the same respect to my capoeira. And so that, and whatever Maestri wants, Maestri gets. Anyway, you know, if he would like to do this, I like to make the old man happy.
Yeah. It is interesting. There is a connection between what you do, and this is maybe why I was interested in, like, I think I saw you on social media, and this is one of the reasons why I connected, was that in my gut, or almost, there was an innate feeling that what you were doing and what I'm doing is very similar. I don't think, for me, it has been as concrete as for you of what I can see you've done for yourself. Mine is sort of like I kind of use it and I move through it, right? And not everybody knows my history with regard to dance, right? So I was trying to tell someone who very prominent teacher from in ballet, that I can evaluate dance on a very, very high level, and I think I can also coach it on a high level. Right now, I haven't done, I don't do it every day, so there would be sort of a period of time where I'd have to get back in. But I can look at movement on video and know what's quality and what's not, right? And so from that point, that's why I think for you, the idea was that I was going to somehow shoot video of you, and then somehow using it as in a video movement in a new way, not a new way, but in a way that would showcase what you do. And I think that's the whole idea when you're trying to film martial arts and these very famous films and directors. This is what they're going for. I mean, they want the story, but they're always looking for a way to shoot what it is that you do.
Yeah, and it can be really hard. I've learned a lot trying to do fight scenes. You can't really do it completely authentic and show it, but you can do better than what they've been doing. That's, you know, Hong Kong is much better than American as far. Sorry. Hong Kong is much better at this than America because I think they understand the complexities better. In America, they just like, oh, me big, boom, everybody is Hulk, right? You know, they grab them by the leg. But this is not really interesting, but it's hard to film some of the more subtle stuff. But Lachlan, my buddy that I was telling you about, the actor, we filmed a fight scene, and we came up with the crew. The crew came up with ways to like film some stuff that you could show more complexity, and it's interesting.
Yeah, it's also, I'm going to throw this out to you. What I've tried to do, because in the corporate world, I work primarily in the corporate world as someone that coordinates and assists high-level executives and coordinates their teams. So this new job that we were talking about, or that I've informed people about, is one of team coordinating. It's very much like choreography. It's as close as I can get to choreography in the corporate world, where you're like, okay, that person does that, that person does that, that person does that, right? So the day goes, and like maybe you get telephone and emails, and you're literally steering the team around the issues that are going to hit the hardest, right, from top to bottom. And just like when you're doing choreography and you don't know whether like somebody's going to hit you here or there, it's the same way in business. So there's a flow. So part of the issue is that I'm trying to teach people how to be in the flow, which is very, very difficult for people who are single-minded and independent thinking, and quite frankly, people who have never played in a sport or sports team. That is the big issue that I'm seeing.
You know, I mean, it's kind of funny because it makes me think of this thing in urban life at nighttime that I really like. I mean, I love like the country and all this, but sometimes when you see traffic just flowing so smoothly, and all the traffic comes together, like cars being, shuffled and stuff like that, and just how everybody is just easily cooperating, and it flows even with all those cars.
Right.
And then when it's lit up, it's this is super geeky, but I think it's kind of cool. That's a little bit like dance.
Well, I think that's where you will find that most people, they do, let's say in the corporate realm, it's almost as if they're not thinking about music or flow or anything when they are going to work, which, is the opposite for me, right? So when I'm there, everything's a conversation. Everything has a potential to be an art form, right? Even the way that, let's say you get an email and they say, we need this, 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 and this. So it's very much like, when you're saying, don't hit the tip of the spear, you hit the base, or you do that, whatever the thing that you were talking about. It's the same thing when you respond to a request, right? You're hitting at certain marks, but in your words. And that creates a certain feeling or a vibe, right? So that's what we do, or that's what I know how to do. And that's what I can do in dance as well. So it's not just about being the best practitioner of the dance. It's about, for me, seeing how each person moves and seeing how we can bring those people together to create that flow that
yeah,
you just
and
described with the cars.
if they can feel each other's energy and they have this sense of being a team, I mean, that's sort of my culture. The traditional culture is, it's never about a person. Americans are much, I don't know what it's like in Europe, but Americans are like individualistic to the point of where it's a problem.
Yep.
We're a little bit traditional. East Asian culture is maybe the opposite way. So we're always thinking, well, is this going to be good for them? And then, you know, where's my role? We need to get this done so this person, you know, it's always like a team type of like idea like that. Because I didn't do team sports, but I always had this idea of where is my place and role in the scheme of things, so that I can make everything else flow, you know, or help that flow, right? And when everybody is expected to do their part, you know. It doesn't work so well here anymore, but
no, it doesn't. I think, and that's where I think it comes, like, let's say, for example, when I worked for the company that I'm working for now, it was called a business unit, right? I worked for a specific business unit, but I'm thinking most people here aren't really thinking business wise, because they're not thinking about money when they come to work. And it's really important because money has a flow also, right? Just like movement and dance, there's a money flow as well. And what I try to do, at least in my, when I work, is to try to get people to see the connection between the money flow and how we flow in the office, right? And when there's a disconnect, that's when you know that there's going to be trouble. And you know there's going to be trouble. And it's also the same, let's say if we're putting together a dance show, or even let's say to dial back, when you're doing a video for movement, right? You kind of know who you're going to send the video to, or you do a survey of what you think. You do a survey by looking at all of the really great movement films, and then you somehow you encapsulate that in your mind, and then put together the movement so that, or the new video, so that when it's sent to different people, it resonates with them. Like, oh my God, they're doing this and they're doing that, and that checks the boxes, and also presents, something new or something unique as well, right? Because they're definitely looking for certain things each time, right? So that's what I try to do in a corporate sense, where we have all these different people that are supposedly working together, but they're all over the place. You know what I mean? Like their energy is off. Sometimes it's just like, I know you'll relate to this. We have a meeting, a virtual meeting, and just making sure that everybody shows up on time can make the difference between whether the meeting goes well and whether it goes flat, right? Or if somebody, like, you got an email, and this goes for like a set, right? When everybody's supposed to show up at a set. Let's say the meeting's at a certain time and nobody tells you that this particular person is either coming or not coming. and you go down the roster or the role, and they're like, has anybody heard from so-and-so?
That's kind of what I like about with the school. If people show, they show. If they don't, they don't. That's not true with a performance like a lion dance. I need to make sure that when people say they're going to be there, they're going to be there.
Yeah.
Because you need all the components. But mostly I'm able to stay out of that. I'm just an actor. So I just go there. I am so glad I'm not a producer, because that just looks like a lot of work to me.
Well, I did interview someone who's an AP, what they call AD, sorry, assistant director. And a lot of the things I'm talking about now, he deals with, right?
Yeah.
But he only, he can only see that world, right? Then I try to I'm like, no, what you do there, we can also apply here in some other way, right? So most people are very compartmentalized. And what I try to do is try to merge the different things.
I sort of do that, except what I do, like there's ideas in acting that are very useful in martial arts. and there's ideas of martial arts that are useful in acting, but I abstract them. And so one of the things, like I tell my students, this is the main thing I do a lot is, I don't know if I mentioned it before, but like when you're getting attacked and you're in danger, it's easy to focus because there's a lot of risk. But when you practice, sometimes it's easy to let your mind wander, distract, or just kind of go through the motion, like, you know, without really thinking, what am I doing? Why am I doing a flower with a staff? As well as, you know, there's attack here, there's attack here. You need to have an idea, or your energy, the way everything's going is wrong. And in acting, this is true too. So more so because you're not going to die if you get it wrong, except for maybe a little bit inside. And so you really need mental discipline to be in that character, to believe what is happening is real for that moment, and not to think what's going to happen later, because that character doesn't know what's going to happen later in the script. Just like if you're in a fight, you don't really know what's going to happen, what this person's going to do. Everybody has a different movement and reaction. And we have like no general things, and so just being there, just thinking about what you're doing is like such an important skill in acting that is very applicable to learning how to fight. Especially when you're just doing individual form.
Well, I think it's a shame that we haven't been able to connect. I mean, we've been doing mostly video, all video rather, and some texting. But I could already see if you and I were able to get into a room, that we would be able to do a whole bunch of things. Like we bring cameras and bring all this other stuff, and it's like, all right, let's try this or let's try that. And no. I mean, that's kind of how it's supposed to work, and you figure out what works to get the best image, the best footage, the best movement, you know, and I think that is what, and eventually we'll be able to do it. Eventually we'll get to it, but you know, currently we're under some weird circumstances.
Yeah, it's like being a movie.
Let me ask you this. Let me ask you this real quick. I also believe that there is some metaphysical things that are happening that I've been able to grow that aspect of my ability over the last, I'd say 10 years or so, and it's gotten stronger. Is there, or have you experienced any kind of metaphysical, how do you call it? Metaphysical ability? Does it happen, or is it ingrained with what you do? So let's say, for example, you can sense things before they're about to happen as a result of, you know, you've practiced movement for so long, you've practiced fighting for, you know, a long period of time. Does that actually apply in some other part of your life where you can sense things before they happen, or?
Yeah, I mean, I never thought of it as being unusual.
Oh, okay. But, all right.
It's just like, and sometimes, like, what I've learned, like, I used to just think that I was just imagining things, and I paid a price for that. So, well, for instance, I was like thinking, well, something's dangerous here, and then I thought, well, I'm just being paranoid, and I ended up, you know, having a gun put at my head.
Okay.
So things like that. Fortunately, you know, obviously I survived. It wasn't, you know, but sometimes like that, like I'll override it thinking that I don't consciously see it. But I just believe that the subconscious is like another processor that's going on, you know, looking at things in the background, and you don't know explicitly because it's not there in the conscience. But you've noticed it, you're aware. And so like when I'm fighting, I can sense what somebody's going to do. I know how much force, all these things that are like not really tangible, but I can see where they're going, and make them do one thing. so that I can do another just by little motions. A little bit we call san or shen. And or manjingas, and you know, that's why maestri to this day can still make people do things that they don't think they're going to do.
With his mind or with his movement?
There's not a difference.
Oh, there's not a difference.
Right?
Oh,
the motion is an expression of your mind.
Okay.
Right? And like in Chinese, we have like many different parts of the mind that we talk about, and they're hard to explain in English. So Shen is actually a little bit part of your mind, but it's not like the planning part. It's a, you know, this thing. And you can do things like to make somebody feel uncomfortable, right, or worried, or you can pull it back and make them feel more at ease just before you pop them.
I think I need to take some lessons. I mean, I got so many things I want to do. I want to take lessons. I want to do. I mean, there's so much.
The thing that you do. I mean, it sounds like a bit. I think people develop it. I mean, it's just a thing you develop when you train, you know. If
right, yeah, of course.
Right, and you probably have it and just don't know.
I have it with regard to dance for sure, And let's say, for example, yesterday's rehearsal. Let's say, for example, I'll put it this way: as a result of all of this sort of up and down and crazy things that are happening, I was insecure at a much younger age with regard to dance and movement, but it's all of this crazy life living that now I can go into a rehearsal and literally help to create and move things at an ultra quick pace just by following what the teacher says, and I do it immediately, and I do it with full intention, right? He'll say, okay, I want this particular move, right? You know, something like that, right? And I just say, okay, we're gonna do it exactly like he did. And I go right to it. Now, before, there was all a bunch of nervousness and like, oh, am I gonna do it right? No. Now I don't even think of it.
Well, right? See, and that's part of what we call listening, tingzhi, is paying attention. So when you're nervous, you can't pay attention as well. That's like the hardest thing. It's hard for me too. But especially like if I'm not in danger. Right. But that's the thing, is like you're fine. So you see really what's going on, so you can do it. Most people don't really, they see, you tell them, and they still do something different. I have this problem with a lot of students. And I'm like, what did I just say? Why aren't they doing what I asked them to? It's because they're not really, sometimes it's because they already have an idea what they want and they're not open to listening to the
I think you're right about that, definitely, for
sometimes
sure. I mean,
they're just like all over this place, or or even though you're talking to them, their mind is elsewhere.
Right.
In other words, they're not in the moment, and that's acting.
I mean, I'm gonna end it now because I have to go. We have to move on to I have another person waiting, but I will tell you this: when we started training for shows, and I was telling people kind of what I wanted, that was the biggest issue, when you'd ask them to do certain thing and then they would like do something else. And you say, why are you doing this when you know it's this? Well, we've already talked about it, you know.
Have you ever had I witnessed this, where this guy was trying to convince another guy of something. This was like in a political context. I did a little bit of that. And this representative asks him a question. The guy pauses and just spurts out the talking points again, never answering the question. And then they wonder why these guys never come to their side. So there's more and more, there's this talking and not really listening. You know,
it's I think, and I'm going to close it. I'm going to give you the final point, but I think when I was younger, it was as if this whole dance thing did not have at least in my immediate household, didn't have a great meaning to everybody in my family. Now what I've come to realize is like, it's probably the most important thing that I could have ever been a part of, because there's so much of it that is applicable to other parts of my life. So when I'm at work, I'm literally dancing with people. Now they may choose not to dance with me, which is the majority of the time. And you're literally trying to get them to see, look, if you don't respond to the email, if you don't do something within a certain period of time, if you act or do something independently without thinking about how it's going to impact everybody else, and ultimately that's going to impact us whether we're going to be able to make money or not in the end, you're not going to, these things are really, really important. So in other words, all this mess that's been going on called life has helped me to sharpen this ability, right? Yeah. So when I go into rehearsal, I think part of the reason why he's like, wow, Dave's really doing it, is that I'm listening to what they're asking me to do. Yeah. And I, with all my intention, I go for it as quickly as I can. And of course, nobody's getting hurt, right? It's not like life or death in a flamenco studio, right? I mean, yeah, as you were saying. Yeah, that's that's why you're there to rehearse. You know, but that's taken a long time for me to realize.
Well, it's funny. It's one of those things that's, you know, in acting, we call it taking direction too, you know, and stuff like that. And if for some reason humans are not necessarily very good at it.
Clearly, right? Look, and I think, look, you guys that are listening to this video, I don't know, we've said some very, very important things. I know, you know, I know that we have, right? So if any of you guys have comments or you can relate to this, whatever, we want to hear from you, particularly with what we've been talking about. You know, I want to thank Chris for making himself available to me for in such short notice, right? But it's always great. Like occasionally he and I are talking like this, and there's no camera, no, you know, video. I'm just, you know, I'm pumping him to, hey, you know, what do you think of this? What do you think of that?
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you much. You have a great rest of your day, and I will be in touch with you. Okay.
Sounds good.
All right. Take care.
Bye.
Bye bye.